Peekaboo, I see you. Guess who's back? Uh-oh!
Welcome back, Court. Oh, God. My nose is a little whistly. You're going to have to put up with it. Whistly nose, whistly nose. Alright, we have a couple of different options. We can read a scary story, a normal story, or we can read a Jasmine Kitty story. A Jasmine Kitty story? Okay. Alright, okay, so we have a few different books to read from Jasmine Kitty. So this is Jasmine the Kitty, not Jasmine the Camper. We have Jasmine and the Water Bomb Gang. Jasmine gets catnapped. Jasmine gets really scared. Jasmine takes a bath. Jasmine finds her friends. Alright. Mama had to go to a meeting, so Key and Kaylin robbed the cookie jar and took Jasmine to the garage. They piled into Key's Jeep. Jasmine was recovering from surgery and still had her cone of shame on her neck. But she loved the drive, and she was very happy to be out of the house. She had been so bored. As they drove up the street by the HKE school, they saw Isabella. They stopped and asked if she wanted to go with them. She was happy and jumped in the Jeep. The four of them drove away happily. Key pushed the door open to the gym, and they drove around inside, leaving tire marks everywhere. They drove around the playground, squealing, yelling, and laughing. Jasmine meowed loudly. Key said they needed something called a Slurpee. They drove inside one building and found a Slurpee machine. They got all treats, and Key gave them one to Jasmine. They drove off to see the horses. Jasmine got a serious case of brain freeze. They drove in through the dormitory, and Key put the Jeep into high gear as they bounced up over the stairs. They were headed to Chico's apartment. Key yelled, "Who called for an Uber?" They all squealed, giggling laughter. Chico was surprised to see them burst in through the door. When they asked her to join them, she agreed. She climbed into the Jeep and they drove away. On their way around the school campus, they found Mel Mel, and she had lots of water balloons. Key had already suggested they do a water balloon raid, so it was perfect. Mel Mel climbed into the Jeep and they drove around. She laughed as she passed out balloons to everyone. Even Jasmine got one and quickly busted it with her sharp claws. Pop! The gang used the fire hydrants and the pool to refill their balloons, weapons for their relentless attack on Pleasantville. Not only did they have water balloons, but they also had water bombs. They exploded everywhere as the Jeep made its way through the streets of Pleasantville. The school, the buses, and everything in their path was bombed. They screamed and laughed as they terrorized the streets. It seemed all the adults were busy somewhere else, so they had free reign of the whole town. They flew through the park, up over a big hill, and over a wall, sailing through the air. They landed with a big crash, but they held on tight and nobody got hurt. Along the way, they picked up Ella, and she found a spot on the Jeep. Someone gave her a balloon, and she joined in the fun as the gang waterbombed the entire town. While waterbombing Miss Mindy's office at the school, Angel showed up, and she was eager to join in on the fun. They made her part of the gang, and she got on the Jeep. They were all yelling and laughing. All right, hurry back, Kate. Key turned the Jeep towards the park, and they did the hill jump again, this time with many on board, and all survived the landing. Peyton was...
Oh, I hope she's not crashing. Or maybe she pushed a button and muted her voice.
Oh,
By accident.
yeah. Where did I end up? Where did I end up? Oh, okay. Peyton was hanging out at Camp Panther when the Jeep full of kids drove by. She was jumping on to join the fun. The water bombing gang pelted balloons and water bombs at everything. Cars, houses, mailboxes, buildings. It was an amazing sight. Jasmine was amazed at how many balloons were thrown over everything. They bounced and rolled and exploded. Some of them just laid there waiting for somebody to bust them. Even the ranger station was struck by the water-bombing gang of children. But suddenly, they were being chased. It was Key and Jasmine's mama. They were caught, and she ran after them. Dun, dun, dun. Dinara caught them by the police station, and Miss Mindy was there with Randy. Some of the kids got off the Jeep and ran away. The rest had to promise to stop bombing the town. Their fun was over, but they sure did have a great time. Almost after most of the gang split up, Key, Chico, Isabella, and Jasmine went for one more drive around the town. They promised not to water bomb anymore, but they didn't say anything about stealing a fire truck. Key tried to hotwire the vehicle, but she wasn't able to get it started. They drove off again, having some more fun. How do you guys think Key hotwired the truck? I think she tried to put a carrot in the keyhole. Cookies. Yeah, she probably put cookies on the seat. They took another run at the hill in the park, and Key put the Jeep into a very, very high gear. They flew so high that they were able to look down at the buildings. It was terrifying, but also very exciting. They all screamed, "Yeah!" Gradually, Key drove to each child's house and dropped off the members of the water bomb gang. Key, Isabella, and Jasmine drove around for a little while longer until they all got tired and it was time for bed. Isabella went home and Key drove the Jeep back to the driveway. She parked in the garage and took her Jasmine cat to Mama's bedroom. Jasmine laid on her soft pillow that Mama put on the bed for her after the accident in the laundry room. She meowed and purred as Key got ready for bed, and they both went to sleep. It was an amazing day with tons of fun. The end. Alright, which one do you guys want to hear next? We can do a scary story. We can do a normal kind of a kid's story, or we can do another Jasmine book. Jasmine finds her friends. Let me see if I got that one. I don't got that one. Oh wait, yes I do. Hold on. Gotta open it. Alright, Jasmine finds her friends. Jasmine waited on the step for her family to come home, and she couldn't wait any longer. She got up, stretched, and headed off down the street. When she got to the end of her driveway, she crossed the street to avoid the large dog that lived close by. Jasmine sauntered along with her tail up in the air, with no real plan in mind. It was just nice to be free and wander around. She batted at a fly as it flew by, but missed it. Once she was safely past the huge dog's yard, she crossed the street again and went into the field where someone had been camping. It was covered in ants, so she went around through the grass and headed for a pretty waterfall. Jasmine sat watching the water bounce into the lake for a long time before she climbed up the grassy bank towards the road. Let me get this out of a name tag. There we go. As Jasmine walked down the street and crossed the bridge, she saw something that made her heart race and her eyes widen. A very big house had been built on the large empty lot at the far end of the street. But it wasn't just any house. It was the exact same house her friends got after they moved away. Jasmine was very curious. Running up to the huge front gate, Jasmine looked up and saw a box with a speaker and buttons. Obviously, she wouldn't be able to use the gadget, so she did exactly what any good cat would do. She jumped the gate. What Jasmine didn't know was a silent alarm had been triggered, and the police had been dispatched to investigate. As she walked across the grass and up the driveway, she could see that the house definitely did look familiar. Then she started to pick up scents of humans she knew, and as she walked up closer to the front door, the smells got even stronger. Jasmine was certain that this was her missing friend's house. She looked around the entire area with her eyes wide and her heart pounding. Jasmine walked right up to the bright red front door of the huge house and meowed loudly, but nobody answered. After a few more loud wails of meowing, she began to roam around. She sniffed at everything. There was a large, round, blue thing in the middle of the yard, and she could hear water splashing in it. Jasmine climbed up the ladder so she could see if there were any fish in it. There weren't any. She sat for a few minutes, then she climbed down the ladder and kept on sniffing. As Jasmine used her powerful sense of smell, she walked around the play area with her mouth hanging open. She could smell little human scents that she identified as Peyton, Padme, Niels, and Kimmy. She was so excited that her little mind was just bursting with images of her friends and all the fun she'd had with them. She ran around happily and as she turned the corner, the rear of the house, she came to a sudden stop. The back door was open. This certainly had to be her friends' house because they always left the door open. Jasmine let out a very loud wail of a meow as she ran inside. There was a shelf with photos of the family, and this was all the proof she needed. The photos were her missing friends. Jasmine took a moment to smell some fresh flowers sitting on the counter. Her heart had slowed a little, but Jasmine was so excited and so happy she was still sniffing with her mouth open. At a table with some rather cute dollies, Jasmine sat down and tried to have a chat with them to find out how they were able to sneak back into Pleasantville unnoticed. After several tries, it seemed the dollies either had no information or they simply did not want to talk about it. Jasmine gave up and continued to sniff around the many rooms of the large house. Jasmine walked down the hall past the secret door under the stairs. She looked up and decided to go up the steps. When she got to the top, Jasmine jumped up on the railing and slipped. She started to slide to try to grab hold of the railing, but it was so smooth. She slid all the way down to the bottom and flew off at the end. It was a bit scary as she tried to dig her claws in to stop herself. But by the time she slid onto her belly on the floor, she was enjoying the ride. Jasmine went back up, got on the railing, and slid back down. She did it a few times because it was so much fun. On her final trip up over the stairs, she sat on the railing and stared at the sparkly thing hanging from the ceiling. She was mesmerized by how shiny it was. There was nothing more exciting to Jasmine than bright, shiny things that sparkled. She could not resist the urge to pounce, and so that's exactly what she did. She leapt into the air directly at the sparkly thing, like a missile. Her grip on the railing with her back paws slipped as she launched herself into the air, and so she lost some speed. She was barely able to get a grip on the edge of the shiny thing, and she hung there only by her claws. She dangled for a moment until the swing and her weight caused her to slip, and she fell through the air. She twisted her body as she fell. Ah! Luckily, she landed on her paws on the soft stool directly below, and Jasmine was very grateful it was there to break her fall. Jasmine was having so much fun inside her friend's house, she had no idea the silent alarm had been triggered. Suddenly, she could hear the sounds of walkie-talkies and the local officers arriving at the gate. Jasmine snuck quietly out the back door and walked casually around the front to meet them. Realizing it was just a cat who set off the alarm, they gave a strict warning to be good, then got in their vehicle and left. Jasmine sighed in relief as the police drove away, and she went back to playing in the house until her friends came home. When Jasmine heard the family's vehicle pull up in the yard, she bolted out of the back door and went scrambling across the yard, kicking up dirt with her paws. She started meowing loudly. She leapt into the air over and over again. She ran in circles around everyone as they watched her excited response on their arrival. To Jasmine, it was probably the best thing she could have imagined. Niels was laughing so hard that he farted and fell backwards, nearly dropping his video camera. Jasmine hardly noticed. She was so excited. When things calmed down, Niels got himself in trouble for ringing the doorbell too much. He was put in time out, and Jasmine was so tired she lay down panting heavily.
Ding dong.
Once his time out was over, Niels took Jasmine on a tour of the house and the garage. Jasmine had finally gotten her heart rate and breathing back to normal. She was very happy to have friends home. While they were enjoying each other's company, there was a sudden burst of confused sounds outside in the yard. It was the police, and they wanted to take Niels. He escaped from camp, and they were there to bring him back. Jasmine jumped out the window and hid in the bushes. When Niels tried to climb down, he was captured and placed in the cop car. Jasmine watched quietly from her hiding spot. You're always innocent, Niels. Even though Niels was taken back to camp and the rest of her friends went elsewhere, Jasmine still felt like this was the best day ever. She crawled out of the bushes and looked around, smiling in her heart at the beautiful house. She knew there would be many new and fun adventures now that her dear friends have returned. Jasmine walked to the gate, jumped over it, and wandered off into the streets of Pleasantville, looking for other wonderful adventures. The end. Yay!